welcome to the holiday edition of Thoughts from the Green Room with your host, Geoff Mays. This has been a particularly interesting year with the pandemic, with COVID-19, and as we come to a close, I want to talk about Christmas spirit and what that means today versus what it has meant to me in the past. Let's take a listen. All right. Christmas is almost upon us, and it has been a particularly odd year building up to this moment. With COVID-19, with the worldwide pandemic and being locked down, working from home and all of those things, this has been a crazy year. And as we bring it to a close, we are 5 days away by my calendar. Depending on when you're actually watching this video, it might be a couple days closer, give or take, maybe a couple days after. But right now we are 5 days away from the holiday. And I wanted to talk about the Christmas spirit and how I feel that it's changed and the impact that it's having on me, especially in respects to being locked down, COVID, and everything like that. Now, for any of you who know me, and for any of you who have been following the blog, you will already have figured this out from years past. This is my favorite time of year. No question about it. How about you out there? Raise your hand if you are a Christmas lover and go fanatical at this time of season. And this time of year, not this time of season. You know, that's me right here. Anybody who knows, I've got my traditions, I've got my movies, I've got my Christmas Carol book, I've got the food. I go all out. The tree goes up and I have a great time. And I know that there are many people out there who still get as involved with the holiday as I do. But over the past number of years, I'd say starting about 10 years ago, I started to notice this for myself, but really in the last 5 years, I've really seen a drop in what I consider to be the outward Christmas spirit. What do I mean by that? If you take a moment right now and you open up another page on your browser and you Google Christmas commercials of the 80s. You want to make that a little bit more specific and Google Christmas commercials of the 80s and Eaton Center. And when you take a look at the backdrop of the Eaton Center over whatever famous actor or non-famous actor is being portrayed to send out the Christmas message about buying something, when you see the backdrop of the Eaton Center and you see how well done up it was, like, you walked into the Eaton Center when I was a kid and it was a magical wonderland just as it was. But then Christmas came around and it was completely transformed in this place that was foreign and safe and magical and amazing. And it was all Christmas stuff in the trappings of what I grew up with what Christmas meant. And everywhere I went as a kid, it was what those commercials looked like. Stores were wrapped up in things. There was decorations on buildings. Every house on the street and every other street around me was lit up with lights and Christmas trees in the front windows. It was a magical time of year, accentuated by the coldness and the snow. When I was a kid, there was a lot of snow in Toronto, Mississauga region. So, you know, the prettiness of the lights reflecting off the snow. When I look around now, I don't see even a quarter of what I saw. That transformation of the physical world into a magical place to support the magic of the Christmas time has dissipated. Now, there are many reasons for it. One of those is being a multicultural city and a greater population and greater diversity of that population. And I am all for a multicultural and diverse background and spreading across so that there is a greater equality. Don't get me wrong, I think it's fabulous. One of the things that happens when we do that, however, is we lose the outward trappings of a holiday such as Christmas. Why? Because there are less people of that culture that celebrates Christmas in the way that I did to need that outward display. People who run stores like the Eaton Center or boards that run stores like the Eaton Center take a look at a diverse culture and go, does the traditional trappings of Christmas from the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, does that represent who shops here now and who our community is? And it definitely doesn't. So there is much less public display of the Christmas holiday and the Christmas quote unquote spirit at this time of year. I think this is a good evolution. It's unfortunate to me, someone who loves the magical trappings and the visuals of Christmas, that those things are lost. But I think it's a good progress overall, with personal effect, obviously. So, as I've been reflecting back on this, and this year, I was personally starting to get a little bit excited about Christmas because I needed a break. And I think that everybody out there does need a break. And we've all been trapped in our houses in Toronto region and various regions across the globe. People are experiencing the exact same thing. We've got limited access to services, and the way we go about our business is way different than it was 6 months, 8 months, 10 months ago. So I was looking forward to some lights on the street when I looked out my window. I was looking forward to, those rare shopping trips where I'm getting food. I was looking forward to the Christmas carols in the mall, the plaza, whatever you want to call it. None of that exists this year. I look out my window and there's construction. There's more construction. And there's construction. There's one place that's got some lights on. That's about it. When I look out, there's a building I can see very clearly just out this way of my window. And there's like 4 Christmas trees. In the entire thing, we're talking like a 90-story building. There's like 4 Christmas trees that I can see in those windows. There's nothing. The spirit of Christmas, as far as the physical trappings and my relatively immediate surroundings, about a 12-block radius that I would typically travel in, seems void of the traditional holiday spirit. And it saddens me. I've already spoke to one of the reasons why this is the case, and in that respect it's a good thing because it means we're in a more diverse, more equitable culture, and that's great, unification. But for me personally, as someone who delves into this spirit, delves into the trappings, there's a sadness. What gets me more is that there's not even the exchange. There's not the Merry Christmas from the store clerk or a smile on a face and a Happy Holidays from somebody I pass on the street, any of that stuff, which I remember as a kid. And again, a lot of this could be simply due to the fact that we've got a diverse culture and I'm not passing as many people to celebrate the way I do. Political correctness, all of these things that feed into why it's not vocal. It looks like any other day. It makes sense that we progress this way. It's not a change I'm personally partial of. And given that this year has been so odd with 2020 and COVID and the lockdown and the global pandemic, I was looking forward to a little bit of magic to lighten the mood. And the lack of that magic has left me reflective about what Christmas spirit is. And I think that Christmas spirit feels like it's dying because we're in a much different world than we were 20 years ago. My childhood and the memories of that, it's a different time frame. And that's perfectly fine to grow and change. What it doesn't mean is that for those of us who do continue to celebrate Christmas and who love this holiday and get into it in the various ways that we can and do, I think it's important for the shifts in the world to not shift us. That although we may not experience Christmas in the same way out in the world and with the exchange of strangers, when it comes down to traditions with family, with friends, with the group that we do celebrate with, then we need to keep that spirit alive by continuing with those traditions, continuing with those festivities and those activities, and sharing with those who are of like mind and getting together and do what we can. Now, obviously this year is going to be challenging. We can't get together in the way that we typically would because of COVID-19 and the lockdowns. But to the best that we can, the Christmas spirit needs to be kept alive, or is kept alive. But I think we're reaching a point when it's kept alive somewhat in private, within your micro community versus your major community, everything around you. So as much as it feels like Christmas spirit is dead when I look out the window and I don't see any lights and I don't hear Christmas carols on the street and all of that. I've reflected and come to the conclusion that the world has changed, and although Christmas spirit doesn't seem present, it needs to remain present through people like myself and those of like mind who celebrate. Continue to wish people a happy holiday, a Merry Christmas, because you believe in it and love it. Continue to put up your trees and your lights and all those things that you've done, and host the festivities that you host at Christmas and open presents and all of that. You don't need to stop those things because the world around us shifts. And with that in mind, and the realization that Christmas spirit is not dead, that it does get carried on, it's a belief and a feeling that is supported by those who hold it. With that said, I wish everyone out there a Merry Christmas for the 2020 holiday. I wish that the new year in 2021 brings you great joy, great happiness, and that there's a shift in the world that brings us to a more regular state where we're out and able to communicate and interact with people in person. With that all said, a Merry Christmas to you all. And those are your thoughts from the green room. I'm your host, Geoff Mays, and we will see you in 2021.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas.